This is the Next Bite of Life podcast, the place to be to hear personal stories from expats, digital nomads, and everybody else taking their next bite of life. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Next Bite of Life podcast. My name is Kim Casanelli. Today's guest is a dear friend by the name of Anita Oliver. She's an expat in Portugal, and those of you who have listened to the show prior may remember her name. I interviewed her and her husband about 3 or 4 years ago. So this is her second time back on the show. We're going to talk about life then, life now, dealing with loss and how everything is. So let's say hello to Anita. Anita, how are you today?
I'm very good, Cami. The weather's gorgeous here in Paradise, and hopefully the weather's the same in your area in
Oh,
Valencia.
yeah. We've been lucky so far.
Yeah,
So, paradise. I like how you called it paradise. That's exactly what it is, right?
yeah. I have days when I wake up and I go outside and it's like I'm just right where I want to be.
Yeah. And that's a great feeling, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, it just is. I don't need anything else. It's just like this is perfect.
Yeah. Now, for a refresher course, I know you were living, we actually met because we both happened to be pharmacists in our old life. And we met once you had moved to Portugal and connected. And so the story is similar. You were in Texas also before this, right?
Yes, in Corpus Christi. We lived there for 10 years before we left the US.
Now, how did you decide on Portugal as your destination?
Oh, we took a real roundabout way to decide.
Tell us about that.
Okay. So I had this idea in 2011. It just this epiphany. My brother was very ill, and it was just realizing that life is short.
Yes.
And my husband, Richard, had a diagnosis that meant that as it was progressive, and it was if we don't do some things now and change our lifestyle, we're not going to be able to do the things we want to.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we made a plan and decided to travel. And about a year after we came to that decision, we had sold everything except our house, which we leased. And that's furniture. I'd uploaded pictures, everything like that. And we started in Mexico. And we made this vow just not to plan more than 3 months at a time ahead,
Yeah.
and just kind of do things a little more spontaneous because neither Richard or I were very spontaneous. We were big planners. So
Yeah.
our idea was that we would probably settle in Mexico, and we each had a suitcase and a backpack. And kind of along the way, it was like, wait, we don't have to settle in Mexico. Let's
Exactly.
we can go anywhere we want. So we started busing around. We took all the buses around Mexico
Hmm.
and would hop off, and get. We'd have our Airbnb all set up and everything. And so we visited several cities and states in Mexico, and then moved down to Guatemala and
Wow.
Antigua and spent 6 months in Guatemala crisscrossing. And at that time, we both had certifications to teach English as a second language.
Yeah.
So we volunteered with the public school in Antigua and taught for 4 months,
Okay.
and then moved on to Honduras and Nicaragua, where Nicaragua we also spent several months there.
Holy
And
smokes. You got
yeah,
around.
well, we went to every country, including El Salvador in Central America, and then moved on to South America, where we were in Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia. before doing some island hopping, starting with Curacao and the Dominican Republic. And then
Yikes.
we headed to Europe. And at that time, we were about 3 years into our travels, and we realized that it was getting time to set up a base and slow down.
Yeah.
And so the choices, just from our reading, was, well, let's take a look at Portugal and Spain because they had a real nice climate,
Hmm.
and we liked the coastal life.
Yeah.
So we started in Barcelona and visited some places in Spain, but once we got to Portugal, it just felt like, I'm sure you know, because you don't know unless you've experienced, where you go, this is it.
Exactly. Yeah, no, there's something really great about finding your home. I mean, you mentioned a lot of this other countries, and I'm sure they were great in their own ways, but once you got to Portugal, it felt like it felt right. And so you were okay with staying there for a long time.
Yes, and the thing is too, once you've traveled and lived nomadically,
Yeah.
where you carry everything you have and you realize that you can buy what you need wherever you are and leave it behind when you leave. Once you've lived like that, the idea of permanence changes. You
Yes.
don't have to have things permanently. Just
Yes.
as you know from living in Malta and then Seville
Yeah.
and now Valencia, once you keep your options open, or if you keep your options open, you can bounce a little bit until you find a good fit.
Yes,
And even
exactly.
then, just like we had talked about it several times, because we live several places in the United States too, and we bought and sold 9 houses over that time. And it's right for the moment, and then
Yeah,
you move on,
exactly. No, I've
and
always
and
felt the same way. I think you just
exactly.
have to keep looking, and when you find some place that's right, you tend to know it. Now, was there any other place that you had lived in before, like, South America and Mexico? Was there a place that you thought maybe might work? It wasn't like fully like this is it, but did you feel like you could live in any one of those other places?
We had a really good experience. We loved Nicaragua. We
Okay.
loved we loved the people there. We made several good friends in Granada, Nicaragua.
But I'm
And
sure you're glad you kind of didn't
oh,
settle there, right?
oh yeah, 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 with President Ortega in his fourth term now and really clamping down on the press and freedoms. Nicaragua is a very poor country.
Yeah,
I believe it's right behind Haiti as the poorest in the Americas.
yeah,
And now, and the heat,
yes,
just after about 3 years, the heat and humidity got to me. And we'd started out thinking that, hey, we can handle hot weather because we've lived in
in
Texas. But when
Texas,
you
yeah.
live when you live in the United States, you go from your air conditioned house to your air
Yep,
conditioned car to
yep,
air conditioned restaurants.
yeah. At work, it's true.
Exactly, and it's different when you're living with in an apartment with a fan,
Yeah,
and you're walking everywhere,
yeah,
and the businesses aren't air conditioned.
yes.
And finally, after about
I
3 years,
carry
it
my
was
hand
like,
fan with me, I've become so
exactly,
Spanish with my hand fan.
exactly. The heat just after 3 years, it was like, okay, we need maybe more of a change of season.
Exactly. And so since you have a portable life, you could just go and no worries, go to the next place.
Sure, and I still feel portable.
Yeah,
I look around at what I've got, and I could pass it on to friends or sell
yeah,
it now, and I'm not tied to anything that I go, oh, what would I do with this? I could pass
exactly.
it on to somebody who who would love it just as much as you.
Yeah, your mindset changes once you've traveled and you realize, like you said, all those material things are just that, material things, and you can do without it, and you really don't need much. But it's a lesson that I think a lot of people, at least in the US, need to learn because there's still that whole I gotta keep up with my neighbors, I gotta have the newest car, and it's all like I gotta have the big bills, and the bills just never stop.
Exactly, exactly. And just about anything is replaceable.
Yes.
I uploaded or I digitized all our pictures.
Mm-hmm.
And for Richard getting selling his art collection because he had a really good collection and he'd inherited some very nice pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Deciding what to do with that was the hardest thing for him to part with, and
Yeah.
so we did the hard things first. And
First, yeah.
photos you digitize, we took pictures of his art and then donated some, gifted friends with some. It was just fine. And then you go,
That's
okay,
great.
we can move on, and we have pictures of our stuff, our old stuff, if we need to look at it. And we never have looked at it.
That's always the way it is. How many pictures? I have like thousands of pictures of my phone, and I'm like, do I ever even look at it? No. But I think you feel better knowing that if you did need to look at it, you could find it somewhere.
Sure, and you could go down memory lane a little bit.
Exactly. How long have you been in Portugal now? It's going on.
I'm going on 5 years in November. I'll have been here 5 years.
Wow. So really, I mean, that is your second home now.
Oh, it
Actually,
is. It
it's your
is.
first home, and
It
and
is.
going back to the US is your second home. That's fantastic to hear because a lot of people need to hear that you can actually leave where you're from, go someplace else, and make a wonderful life for yourself. And
Exactly. Well, and
five
I'm
years
not,
is great.
I don't have to stay in Portugal. I don't see leaving Portugal.
Yeah,
But the thought is always there that I can do other things. Getting
the
the
option.
residency visa is not difficult. It's not expensive. If I
Hmm.
found another place that I'd want to be, I can move on.
Yes. Now, I know this might be a difficult subject to talk about, but I would like to, talk about handling loss while you're in a different country. I had the pleasure of meeting your husband, and he was a really wonderful person. And it's funny, me and Federico still talk about him every so often because we had so much fun both times that we ended up spending. I think overall we spent like 10 days with you guys in Portugal, and then you guys came to Valencia and we spent some more time. So it was wonderful, and we have really nice memories. Now, how did it feel? Like, walk us through how you were able to handle that loss, and anything you wanna tell anybody.
We knew that Dick had chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, COPD.
Hmm.
Back in 2008, he was diagnosed. And so we knew that the disease was progressive.
Hmm.
And that was one of the things that really got us moving when we left
Okay.
in 2012, was to take advantage of the time.
Yes.
And so all our lives we've kind of prepared for disasters. So
Hmm.
we had our hurricane plan when we lived in Texas. we
Oh
had
yeah.
our we had our wills drawn up when our before our son was born. um, when we had wills when we took off traveling, and we made sure that my sister was our contact
Yeah.
and son, and we made sure they knew where we were and that they had access to any paper should something happen. And then, of course, we notified the State Department too, which tracks as you go
Yeah.
um, traveling. But anyway, so we'd always approach things pragmatically, I
Hmm.
guess. And we realized, when we set up the base, we needed to make sure that we knew we had doctors, and we'd scoped out the hospitals and treatments. And that
Hmm.
was one thing Portugal has a wonderful healthcare system. Same with
Yeah.
Spain.
Yeah.
And and then we knew that we wanted to get a network of friends around us
Yes.
because we, as Dick got sicker, we wanted to make sure that we had good close friends who we could go to their house, they could come to our house, we could meet them for meals.
Mm-hmm.
We helped people out doing things, and they helped us out. So we kind of built our own family
Exactly.
of really good friends. And when Dick passed away in October of 2018, of course you could prepare and prepare, but
Exactly. But it's never the same when it happens.
no. But I have that we have had our U.S. will, we
Mm-hmm.
had our Portugal will. Um, we had everything was joint. And we had Dick was the financial person. Every marriage divides tasks,
Yes.
but we had gone through, and he had prepared lists, and I knew exactly where to find information in our accounts, how to pay the bills, which he had always taken care of. He'd shared all that information with me,
Mm-hmm.
which is really important. You
Very
work
important.
together as a team, and one of the things I remember from work is that you cross train people.
Yes.
You make sure that somebody can step in and take care of things as you need them.
Yes.
And so I took over more and more as he became more and more ill,
Yeah.
and from driving to paying the bills and everything. But you just can't be prepared when it actually
No.
happens. So I the first year was hard,
Yeah.
and
Of course, you were married for such a long time.
we were married 38 years and
Wow.
together 41.
Wow. Almost as long as I've been alive, right?
Yeah, we got married in 1980 and met in 1977. So,
Wow. I remember seeing his pictures and I thought, that's not him. And when he looked at it, it's like, no, that's not him. And we were both like, it is him.
really,
Yes.
long hair and beard and flowered shirts, and
Yes.
we
It was
we always
fantastic.
referred to ourselves as working hippies, where
Yes, that's exactly
we had
what
to
you
work
were in
and
those pictures. Yes.
we had to work and support ourselves, but we had a lot of the same ideals too.
Great. So it must have been really gratifying to know that this new family that you had built were there for you
Oh my
and you were
God,
able
yeah,
to, you know,
yeah,
depend on them.
yeah. I had when he went into the hospital. Actually, with when he went into the hospital with congestive heart failure, and he had tachycardia,
Hmm.
um, and he went in where we went in with the expectation that he would be coming home.
Hmm.
And so I went home the first few nights, and then he'd become very disoriented. He was hooked up to oxygen,
Of
so
course.
he'd become very disoriented when I was gone. So I started staying over, and then friends would come in and sit with him because I told him I'll never leave you alone.
Hmm.
In a hospital.
Yeah.
I firmly believe you need an advocate. You need somebody to make
Yes.
sure to take care of you, along with the nursing, but you
Yeah.
to give you water when you need it,
Yeah.
and things like that. And
Hmm.
so I started staying with
Yeah.
him. And then the day before he was supposed to get out, it was his birthday. He was supposed to get out on his birthday,
Hmm.
and he became kind of very disoriented, and
Yeah.
from there it moved fast.
Yeah.
But without friends, I had friends. I'd meet at the hospital real briefly, and I'd run home every 3 days to take showers, and
Hmm.
get clean clothes, and but my friends I could call, and then they were there after he died to take my car home, which had been in the hospital parking lot,
Yeah.
and just be there for me.
Exactly, which I think is one of the most important things, just having people to be there for you. And like you said, preparation, you had everything all worked out, what you wanted to do when that happened. So there wasn't, a huge drain on the person left behind because you guys had taken the initiative of making sure that everything was going to be.
Oh, there was no way I could make any decisions. And
Yeah.
we had even bought a prepaid cremation plan like
Mhm.
3 years before when we settled on Portugal.
Oh, that's
And
great. Yeah.
being
I mean, this is
cremated is
something.
portable too, because I've scattered his ashes up and down. I've
I'm sure
scattered
he,
his ashes
he
up and
wanted
down
that.
the coast. And my son has taken it back, some of his ashes.
Yeah.
To scatter in Montana. And then when I went back to Texas last time, I scattered some ashes along the
Yeah.
Texas coast. So it's kind of a portable life
Ex-
and death, you know.
Exactly. Yeah. He's in places where he wanted to be and the places he loved most. So that's great. You can't
Exactly.
really ask for any more than that, can you?
No, no.
Now,
So
this leads me to my next question for you. I like the idea that you are co-living. So tell us how that came about. Like, where are you now after that?
we met some friends in a couple in Ecuador in 2014 when we were living there and stayed in touch with them. And when we went back for our visa in the US during the waiting period, they had a house in Florida and they said, well, you can go down there and stay at our house in Florida.
Wow,
They're
cool.
Canadians.
That's
And
great.
so we did some traveling with them. We met them in Spain 1 year and went to Denmark with them, and then met them in the Czech Republic where we had an apartment and shared it for a month
Hmm.
in Prague. And that idea, they were talking then about Spain or Portugal. And I said, come to Portugal, let's
Hmm.
go house. And if you don't like Portugal, then you can move on. I
Yeah,
mean, you're not out much except the residency visa.
exactly.
So that's what happened. And it kind of, we found a house. They came over in 2018 and we were living in Lagos. Dick and I were in a two-bedroom apartment, the one you saw,
Yes. Uh huh.
but our lease was expiring in a couple months, so we started looking for a big house where
Hmm.
we could all spread out, and we found one in the central Algarve, Albufeira,
Hmm.
which and it's on the outskirts of town. And we, as soon as we walked in, it was like, this is it. It has it's a huge house. It's 4,000 square feet with
Wow.
two big terraces upstairs. One faces toward the mountains and one faces towards the sea, which we can't see the sea.
Yeah.
But it's perfect. 5 bedrooms, 5 baths, a pool, a big yard. It has a sunroom.
Yeah. It
And
sounds awesome, and what a
so
great way to be able to have company but still have your own space.
exactly, exactly. So I have a bedroom, bathroom, and what I call office, a chair, where I'll watch TV if I want to by myself.
Yeah.
And then this big terrace. And then they have a master, a terrace, and Shelley has one of the bedrooms is her art studio.
Okay.
And a lot of times we can go through the day without, just bump into each other a little bit in the kitchen or sunroom or something. And we do things together,
Yeah.
but there's plenty of privacy. And then we
That
meet together and cook dinner.
that is awesome. I
It
mean,
is,
it's
and
awesome.
it's a family.
Yeah.
And of
I
course, the expenses are
Yeah.
halved, household expenses.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to ask you what the cost of living is where you're there, where you're at in Albufera, how it was in Lagos.
Pretty much, I went over the figures. I wrote a blog that you're going to include the link to. I wrote a blog in 2017. How much does it really cost to live in Lagos?
Yeah.
And that the numbers are pretty close to, as a couple, pretty close to what it is living as a single now too,
Oh,
or solo now.
yeah.
Basically because your rent,
Yes.
whether it's a couple or not, your rent is going to be the same.
Exactly.
My food now, with there's three people in the household, we split the food bill three ways.
Yeah.
And but then we divide everything else because we started out as couples. So
Hmm.
we divide the rent, we divide the utilities, we divide um, the heating and electricity, things like that. But I figured it out, and I'm under 2,000. Let me see, I wrote it down, and of course I can't remember it. Um, I'm under, well, 1,800 euros
1800.
average a month is
So
what it
so it's
costs.
not the 1000 or the 1200 that you're led to believe by a lot of the bigger magazines. It's a little bit
No.
more than that.
Oh, yeah, probably double
Yeah.
because we were reading the same magazines that you've read, and
Yes.
where, in fact, I referred to that in this blog that I sent the link to. They're going $3 hamburgers. Well, yeah, you can buy them, but they're not.
Exactly. You get what you pay for sometimes. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. We always said, you can live for $600 in the US a month too, but do you
Ex-
want to?
exactly. It's funny because the last interview I did with somebody else who moved to Lisbon, and she was just like, she's 41 and she wanted something different, and she had experienced some loss too. And she said, she has a YouTube channel, and I was watching one of them, and she's like, what I have to tell you is, like, you've got to be careful of all those places and all those magazines and all those things that tell you that it's this much, because you're going to be in for a shock. So you need to have some extra due diligence in addition to what you're being told, because I'm not sure what year they got their prices, where they're getting their prices, or like, it could be like, I don't know, like, not even outskirts. It could be like Bumfuckville, as I like to say. I don't know what
Yeah,
else to say.
yeah, no. Well, we know Clyde and Terry live in central Portugal, and their rent, I think, is about 350 euros a month,
Hmm.
and mine for half the house is 900 euros a month.
Yeah. So it
But there's a
depends on
huge,
where you want to live, what you want
exactly.
to do. But I
And if
wish
you
they would
can,
make that clear, because a lot of
exactly.
people that are coming from the US, first of all, don't speak any Portuguese. I think to, like, kind of get yourself in there, you need to be someplace where at least there are a lot of English speakers, which means Lisbon, maybe Porto. Like, you need to be central so you can kind of get in there. And then maybe
Yes.
later on,
And
you
the
can then move
Algarve
to those
has,
places that cost 350 and you don't have to worry about anything,
sure,
or you start taking classes.
the Algarve has lots of British people, and
Yes.
English is English and Portuguese, or you can get by in English. In fact, it's um, it's really a handicap because you're not forced to learn
To learn,
Portuguese.
yeah. But
Because we
then,
picked
of
up a
course,
lot of Spanish as we were traveling.
yeah. But it raises the price on how much you pay, though. So,
Exactly.
right? Don't tell me 1200 in Lisbon when it's not going to happen unless you know, I guess some people are willing to, like, live with roommates, and when you're young, maybe you're willing to do all that. But as an older person, you really kind of need your own space that's not.
Sure, and your own luxuries. We
Yes.
saw traveling through Central America. You can, I mean, living like a local
Yes.
um, is a lot different from living in a home that's Western built
Yep.
with
Yep.
Western amenities.
Yes. And that's
Um,
absolutely the overriding thing. That's what you said too. Think of the amenities you can live with and the ones you can live without, because that makes a huge
exactly.
difference.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of co-living with other expats and
I've done
sharing
some
things because
reading.
you've got the company too, right? You know?
Sure. I've done some reading, and to me, it seems like it's an idea you can find more and more on it. But
Yes.
I didn't even know it had a name when we first started talking about, hey, let's share a house.
Yeah.
And but there's a lot of really good benefits from making your own new family again.
Yes.
It,
Definitely.
yeah, I we were really, it worked out so much better than we had
Yeah,
dreamed or hoped.
that's fantastic.
Yeah,
Now, the thing, that's one of the wonderful parts about being online, and you had a blog, doing all these things, that you meet people online and then you meet them in real life and you become friends, and it makes life so much more enjoyable. And like, you and I would have never met if it hadn't been for meeting online, and
exactly.
so many friendships, right? So it's a small world, but it's a big world, but it's kind of it's
Well, and
like
we have
six.
other acquaintances that we found that we had.
Yes.
It just is very strange. We never met in Texas. We lived
I
three
know.
hours apart, and here we are in two different countries, and we have mutual friends.
I know. It's very strange, but it's wonderful. That's part of the whole. You feel so international. It's like, yeah, I know somebody here and I know somebody at the other end of the earth, and it's just amazing.
It
Thank God for
is.
the internet. It's done a lot of bad things, but it's actually done a lot of good things too.
Well, and if you keep your mind open and think of travel or think that you can live a lot of different places, travel actually makes the world seem
Small.
smaller sometimes because it's just a jet plane away and you
That's
take your stuff with you.
very true. Very true. Now, how's it been when the pandemic started? Like, how was it for you?
Um, in February, well, I'd been hearing, like everyone else, reading in January and February about how it's spreading through Asia and China, and then moving on. And once it was out of China, you just know it's going to go world round. If you've done any reading on pandemics,
Exactly.
and with our society as mobile as it is, it's going to get around. And
Yes.
I had read this book years ago on Ebola, and
Mhm.
that all you need is one infected person, and here it goes.
Yeah.
So, but Portugal luckily was really proactive, unlike Italy and Spain, which
Mhm.
were very slow to enforce their lockdowns. In fact, I think we talked about it. In Portugal, enforce or institute initiated its lockdown March 13th, and I think you said yours started that day
The
too.
14th. We went the next day, but they should have started it
Exactly,
a lot earlier for sure.
exactly, and that's what's kept everybody safe. And they've started lifting it 3 weeks ago, where you could go to small businesses.
Okay.
So I went to the plant store first thing, and I figured, well, since I'm home, I might as well buy some plants.
Exactly. I know you also didn't you buy a sewing machine, right?
I did, I did.
Because you were tired of crocheting or something? No.
No, I've been crocheting too. It's great. It's a fairly cheap hobby, and then I have friends and I give away Afghans too. I make long things.
Good. Save me one. I'll
I
send you
will.
my color preferences and everything.
And it's it's fun. And yeah, do that. I'll make you one and bring it when I come over.
Oh, that sounds great. Then you can show me how to use the sewing machine that's here.
Ah, sure,
Yeah, they
sure.
left a really nice one, a Singer.
Yeah,
Like,
it's good to have hobbies.
yes,
For years, I wrote, and Dick
yeah,
and I wrote the blog
the blog,
together,
uh-huh.
and I still keep the domain,
Yeah.
and I'm still getting comments on it.
Let's have the
And
name of the blog for anybody that is thinking of Portugal and wants to go there. They should definitely, because it's chock full of information.
it's called No Particular Place to Go, all
Like the
put
song.
together. That's where we got the idea from. We were in Mexico and we heard the song at a grocery store. It was just so strange, you know. Wow. But I said that would be the perfect name for a blog.
Yeah.
So it's
Uh,
no particular place to go.net.
okay. Yeah, it's got a lot of information, and because they spent years writing it, and so you can find a lot of things about Portugal. We just touched upon them now, but detailed information there. So make sure you check that out, and I'll also put it on the blog post that goes with this podcast, so you can have it and you can go look at it and check it out. Now,
Yeah.
Anita, so when the pandemic started, you were home, or you
Oh,
were in Portugal?
when it started, yes, I was in Portugal, but when they initiated the lockdown, some friends I had told them that I would house sit for them and feed their cat, and
Hmm.
they'd headed back to Seattle to see family.
Hmm.
And I was, as the pandemic was kind of ramping up and the infections were spreading in Portugal, I said, you guys might want to think about coming back here real quick before they say they don't want anybody from Seattle coming back.
Exactly.
And they came back a week earlier and just in time because they did the lockdown, and I would have been on my own for the next 2 months.
Yeah,
It was close to my house, so I could still kind of about 8 kilometers away bop over. But it being
it
on
would have been hard.
lockdown, yeah, being on lockdown with friends is a lot different than
Yes,
doing it on your own.
on your own. Yeah. Well, you could also become a cat lady and start talking to the cat.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
when the
I
cat starts
do.
answering you,
We
then you've
actually
got
have
problems.
we have three wild cats that
Okay, they're not inside the
we
house,
feed.
right? They're just
No,
wild
no, no.
outside.
So we put out food for them morning and night, and then they're kind of off and about and stroll in, but they know exactly what time they're going to be fed. So
I see.
when we took off in November last year, we all went on a cruise down the Douro. We had
Hmm.
to actually get a sitter in to feed the our wild
Ah, because they
cat.
were like, "Hey, lady, you forgot to feed me."
Uh-huh. Yeah,
That's cute. So you have pets without having to have pets, but you still have pets.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah, there's a male that comes occasionally, and it's like, boy, I sure would like to trap him so we could neuter him. The females have been neutered,
Yeah,
but I'd like to get him neutered, and there's no way you can't touch him.
yeah. Huh. So now that the restrictions have been lifted a little bit, are you going out? Or are you slowly kind of reverting back to, like, I like to be by myself? And because I find myself doing that, so I wonder if that's the same for you, where you kind
Sure.
of feel like, yeah, it's nice to be home. I really don't feel like going anywhere.
I've really enjoyed this downtime. Sometimes you can, just like in the United States, you can get so busy that you forget to slow down. And I've really enjoyed slowing down.
Yeah,
And when things start really ramping up as far as seeing friends and things, I'm going to curb some of. I could go out to dinner or meet friends every day of the week,
yeah,
and I don't think I want to do that. I want to go a little bit slower
me
and kind
too.
of find a little more balance in alone time and busy time.
Yeah.
So
Now,
it's been good for just slowing down.
yes, I think, the world needed a reset, and hopefully this will be it.
Hmm. Well, and there's
Now,
a big difference in having options too, because
yes,
we all have income coming in.
yes, very important. Very, very important. Now, do you have any, well, assuming this all ends in a reasonable time, what are your plans going forward? Do you want to travel, or are you going to be cautious and stay back, or do you have exciting plans for going someplace else as soon as they open the floodgates?
Yeah,
Like,
all
shit,
my
I've been waiting for
exciting
like
all my exciting plans have been canceled.
yeah.
I was supposed to go to Croatia for June, for the month of
Poof,
June, and then my son and grandson were going to be over in July, and then I
poof,
was going to go to Egypt to see our
poof,
mutual friend
poof.
Eden. And at this point, I think it's just a wait and see. The only thing I'm planning is I do want to go back to the US to visit family,
Yeah,
maybe at the beginning of next year. But
yeah.
I'm not making any plans. I'm just going to see how things unwind.
Yeah, same here. I think,
And
we're going to skip this year as far as going to the US and going back home to Nigeria to visit family. I think for now we're just going to just if they open up the floodgates and everybody can travel again and all that. I said I might take a train maybe, but it's going to be really local. For one thing, I'm thankful that we're able to be here. I want to support the local economy, and
exactly,
that's what we had thought of doing anyway. And so our travels this year have been around Spain. So I would like to keep on doing that. I just don't feel comfortable. I was reading, I think it was Forbes yesterday or something, and they have like predictions from the airlines as to what was going to happen. You have to check in 4 hours before your flight. All these things. Carry your own luggage. No hand luggage on the plane. I mean, it was like da da da. I stopped reading after like the first 10 things because I said, no, no thanks. And the prices were going to be way higher because, of course, there's going to be less direct flights. We had a friend from Valencia, actually not a friend of a friend, went from Valencia to visit family because they had some emergency or something. It was a 40-hour journey because a lot of airlines have either cut out a lot of their flights. So to get anywhere, they had to go a train to Madrid, then drive during the night so that they didn't have to stay at a hotel because they weren't open or they didn't feel comfortable, and then go to Amsterdam and then this and that. I'm like 40 hours. That's way too much.
oh
Nothing
yeah.
is worth
Well, and travel by plane, I've said for years, isn't fun anyway. You just
that.
go,
Exactly.
oh, I've got to get on this plane.
Yeah.
They- I just, they're lost days. And, but when you get where you're going, that's one
Yeah.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm thinking if I do anything this year, it'll be going around Portugal too, taking some good road trips.
Exactly. Because the thing about living in either one of those countries, it's so beautiful. There's so much to see. I think you were telling me yesterday, it's like every village has something exciting and wonderful and historical. So you could go for years and not
Exactly,
even
just like
get out.
Spain.
Yeah.
Each place has something that just sets it apart from the
Yeah.
next village.
That's fantastic. Now I'm going to end the interview by asking you something I always like to ask everybody. What advice would you give to somebody who is thinking of doing the same?
Um, I think that the first thing is to let the process evolve. Don't settle down too quick. Just like we started out thinking that we'd end up living in Mexico, and here I am in
Yeah.
Portugal
Not
all
in
these years
Mexico.
later. And you can read magazines, and what makes one person say this is the perfect place to call home doesn't work for you. So what you have to do is you have to um, have things to compare where you want to be. You just don't pick one place and
Yeah.
say that's it because somebody else said it. You have to have things that compare.
Yeah.
And and then kind of be open, view it as a evolution and a process
Yeah.
where you start out in one place and you're not stuck unless you buy a place, unless you buy a house. You are not stuck in one place. So if you're not happy there, want to go on, then you keep your options open.
So, number one advice, do not buy a place before you even know where you're going to settle. How many people have we seen between the both of us that do exactly that,
Oh
right?
my God. Yeah, I can't believe it. I'm thinking now, after 5 years, maybe about buying a place eventually,
Exactly.
because I have some ideas where I would want to be. And when we first got to Portugal, we loved Lagos.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I'm in central, along the central coast, I really like how the proximity to Spain. It's easier to take a bus up to Lisbon.
Mm-hmm.
It's just kind of in the middle of everything. So I
Yeah.
would look at maybe central Portugal. And you're not going to know that um, when you first go to a place, you need to see a lot of different areas.
And the thing is, also when you buy, now you're stuck. You don't have much. And it's not like the US where you can put it on the market and it sells like a day later, right?
Exactly, exactly.
You
I
better be
know
able
I've
to
been,
hold on.
housing prices are coming down because of the pandemic. The
Yeah.
Algarve especially has been so high for housing
Yes.
prices, outrageously high. My mouth drops.
Mm.
But anyway, you need to kind of know there's a lot of things, and I don't know how, if I want to really get back into being a homeowner again.
Yeah. Now, where do you find like people are settling down in? Like, what are the major hotspots? I know Lisbon. Everybody freaking goes to Lisbon, but what are the other places that you find that a lot of expats consider?
There's Lisbon, then there's Porto.
I love
um,
Porto. Mhm.
oh, and Porto is beautiful. Of course you're north, and
Yeah.
so it's colder, and it
Yes.
has it's very it it's quite a bit colder. Then you
Mhm.
have southern Portugal, which is we have palm trees here, and
Mm.
it's tropical. We have a rainy season, I guess you could call it, or a chilly season that starts probably from November to March, April,
Mhm.
and then it gets gradually warmer. And even the summer, though, we'll get some real good summertime temps. But the mornings are cool and it cools down in the evening.
Nice. Very
So
nice.
yeah, so the Algarve is the other hot spot.
Yeah.
And that would include Lagos, where we
Mm.
started out. The other big one is Lolé, which is central, and then Tavera, which is in eastern Algarve.
So those are the hot spots that
So those are
anybody.
the three. Those are the three cities that a lot of expats end up in.
Great. So anybody listening to this and you're considering Portugal, think about looking up those places. Lisbon is not the end all of all, but once again, if you're coming in and you have no knowledge of Portuguese, you don't know, you might want to get some Airbnb places and just kind of move around till you find your place. I mean, you may find the
Exactly.
country, but you still need to narrow it down to where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Yes.
completely different from one place to the other. I mean, we were I call it my Goldilocks and the three, looking for, no, this isn't right. Malaga sucked, Seville wasn't for us. And then we finally got to Valencia. And it's like, you need to find that. So don't make this rash decisions and don't think that I can come there and it's like, oh my God, okay, my house was $1 million, I guess, in the US. And I found a house for half a million. Can you believe it? And you go buy it right away. And then you move and you discover that that house really should be like 200,000, right? I've seen it happen
Exactly.
here.
Exactly. Or it's a place where you're you see another place that's better. I mean, you have to have some comparisons.
Yes, yes, you do. Well, it has been very enlightening talking to you today. I can't thank you enough for joining me on this episode. It was great fun having you and talking to
Thank
you.
you for having me. Thank you.
Well, there's our show for today. So join us for the next episode. And we have enjoyed talking to you, well, talking at you, right? So thank you again for listening, people. And we will see you on the next episode.